Welcome. You're listening to My Magical Horse, the podcast, where we are getting curious about animal communication. I am your host, Jordan Banks, and if you are desiring a more magical connection with your own horse, you are in the right place. Join us as we rediscover our sense of wonder, experience the joy, and feel the magic that horses bring to our lives each and every day. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for spending your time with us. Now let's get started. Welcome back to My Magical Horse, the podcast. Today, I am so excited to re-welcome Felicity Davies. Felicity was my very first guest on this podcast, and she actually is the reason I have a podcast because I came up with the idea for it in her frequency class. Well, first of all, welcome, Felicity.
Hi, I'm so happy to be back. Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah, I'm so excited that you wanted to come back. And also that first episode that we did together,
Mm.
I was so nervous and I don't know, we just talked specifically about what animal communication was. And today I
Yeah,
want to go a little bit broader and of course still talking about what animal communication
yeah.
has brought to your journey, but you had posted something on Facebook or Instagram that
Hmm.
really caught my attention, and it made me think about a lot of people who I've met kind of along my own journey who
Hmm.
maybe had horses that um well they were might have been finding themselves in this predicament. And so what you had written was, when I first realized that my horse wasn't happy, I pretended like everything was fine for 18 months. 18 months later, the universe began stripping away the illusions I had placed on the dream I had, and I was left with what was really important to me, my relationship with my horse. I
Hmm.
stopped competing, I took a break, and I went on a journey to find the pieces that I was seeking. And
Hmm.
that really spoke to me. Wow, it makes me
Mm.
emotional even.
Mm. It's massive and really like common.
I want to talk more about that because I think a lot of people find
Mm.
themselves in a position where they're not doing with their horse what they thought they were going to do or what they
Mm.
thought they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And what that looks like in real life. I mean, I know for me, I my horse Ugo has been kind of the epitome of this because I mean, he was my show horse and he was my dressage
Mm.
horse, and then he just kept getting injured and injured and injured, and then those injuries have brought me into the path that I'm on now, which is this embracing the animal communication and embracing the
Yeah.
messages or the invitation that he was inviting me into my own personal growth journey and the things that I
Mm.
needed to heal and address. And I do also want to make a little side note here is that I think a lot of times when we talk about horses as being healing, the horses are guiding us and showing us the things that we need to look at in ourselves. It's not necessarily that they're doing the healing, but they are a part of the journey. So I just want to just dive right in, I guess, to where you were at, like when you decided to write those slides for your Instagram post a few weeks back, and where you were to where you are now, and just all the things that have led along your path to being a pretty big influence in this realm of horsemanship and the spiritual side and the healing side and all the things. I mean, it's all kind of all encompassing, but yeah, what do
Yeah.
you want to talk about on that topic?
Yeah, so I guess I'll just mention that that post was specifically referring to a time frame in 2017. So I think it was 2016 when I had the aha moment kind of thing, things aren't okay. And then I
Hmm.
think it was the end of 2017 where I decided to make some really big changes. And I think it's just one of those things, and you see this happen across the board. Like people might be in a relationship that they think is fine, and deep down they know it's not fine, and then it takes some time before things start to kind of reveal themselves, and you go on your own journey, and then you come to a point where you're just like, something's got to change, like I can't keep doing this anymore. And I think that was very much my position with my horse at the time. So I've been competing for over a decade, not just with him but with other horses as well, and I was very much focused on winning at these competitions, more. And it just never sat right with me how we would prepare the horses for competitions to help them feel more comfortable there. It was always just ride them through it, give them more miles, lunge them more, use earplugs, use a bigger bit, use the draw reins, use all of the extra things to help them feel more confident, so that then you can go and perform at your best. And I always found that to feel a little bit off. Like there were these elements where we'd have these really beautiful connected moments, especially during training sessions at home or lessons and things like that. And then there were these other times where it just felt like, this feels really crappy. Like I have to really force my horse through these certain things, and I can tell that they're not fine. Either that they're not fine in a more subtle way, they're still being a good boy or a good girl because they're doing everything I'm asking, or they're blatantly not fine, like running me out of the arena because they're like ring sour and they're not wanting to go on the trailer, or they're not wanting to be caught, or they're not wanting to be clipped up, or all of these other things. And once again, the framework of helping them was either more force, more pressure, or medicate them, sedate them if you need help trimming them up, or lots of other kind of mechanisms to support yourself and your horse to overcome this, because it's just like, if you have a sensitive horse, that's just the way it is, right? And I had seen horsemanship, different things start to pop up in my social media, and I was always curious about it, but I couldn't bridge the gap between this more like cowboy style of horsemanship to weaving that into the performance realm.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't also want to stop riding. And it seemed like, from what I had learned, that if you want to go on a horsemanship journey, you go way back to the ground, you start from the ground, and you kind of build back up. And for me at that point in time, because I had tied everything into competing, I wasn't willing to go on a journey like that, because I had tied everything into that. I was in a long distance relationship at that time. I didn't like my job, so I was working just to pay to go to these shows. I wanted to win. I wanted to validate myself through that mechanism, and it was just tunnel focused in that direction. And I began to kind of go on this journey, and then I started exploring the horsemanship things here and there. And I ended up having some lessons with this guy. And one of the lessons, I was like, okay, I've got this big show coming up. I want to prepare Bruce, my horse, for the harness horses that are going to be at this competition. And the atmosphere is really big. Like, how can we set that up at home first? And he said, bring him over to our place. So I took him there, and he was in an indoor arena, and he was riding a horse and carrying like a flag, right? And he guided me through some different kind of things with my horse, with Bruce. And I could just feel the whole time that he was just like holding it together. And I felt that many, many times before, of him just holding it together. And this guy was telling me, he's fine, like, no problem, like, he's fine, kind of thing. And it just kind of broke my heart, because I got to the point where I'm just like, what am we doing? Like, he's clearly not happy with this. He's not comfortable. And I spoke to a friend of mine who was further along her horsemanship journey. And I said, I don't know what to do. Like, he's stopping when I go to the arena, he's stopping when I go to the tie ups, he's hard to catch sometimes. I can feel that he's not comfortable. I want to compete, and I don't know what to do here. And she just said, maybe he just doesn't like what you're doing with him. And I heard that as, maybe he just doesn't like you.
Mm.
And I took it really, really personally. And I think what hit me so hard with that, and what kind of broke my heart a bit with that, was the fact that it was true. And I couldn't unsee that truth anymore, because it was just literally in my face of like, here's the truth. And I couldn't unsee that. And I had
Not
no idea how to.
not that he didn't like you, but he didn't like what you were doing.
Totally, but I didn't
Yeah.
hear it like that.
Yeah.
I didn't have very much self-worth or confidence. It was just like, my identity is tied into how well the horses are doing, how much I love the horses, what we're doing with them. So when you hear something like, he doesn't like what you're doing with him. Well, then it's like, well, I want to do this. He doesn't like that. Where does that leave us? And where does that leave how I am as a person? And my relationship with him, was this all a lie? Am I saying I love my horse, but did I really love my horse if I'm not really seeing these things? You know, you can
Mm.
go on this whole like guilt and shame spiral based on what's coming up, and then everyone else is just telling you, he's fine, there's nothing wrong, like, he's fine, he's great, he's so good. And probably out of most of the horses I had, he was the most well behaved. And that probably was the hardest because I could tell he was trying so hard to please me. There would be really challenging situations and he would hold himself together, and I could
Mhm.
see he would be like grinding his teeth a little bit or a little bit unhappy or not wanting to stand still, but he would try so hard to hold himself together. And everyone's like, he's such a good boy, he's such a gentle giant, and he is. But I could just feel like there's more here that I want to explore with him, because this just doesn't fit. I feel like there needs to be more here, and that option just wasn't available to me. So then I started kind of having this realization, but then because I didn't really have an outlet or a pathway to go, oh, well, instead you can do this, it was either just like burn your competition goals to the ground and go back to the ground, or continue doing what you were doing. There's no other kind of middle ground. Like, you can weave a couple pieces in here, but just try to hold yourself together and try to keep going, because this is what's basically holding your life together at this point. Because you don't know what you're doing with your life. Well, I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I was in a long distance relationship that wasn't feeling amazing, and I hated my job. The horses were it. So I had to hang on to the horses.
Right. Well,
So,
I feel the same. I don't know. I feel like when I was competing with Ugo, I don't know. I just know that I felt like he wanted to do it for me so bad
yes,
that he
yes,
was holding it together because he knew that's what I wanted.
yeah,
And it's taken a long time. I mean, I still am not exactly sure how he felt about it other than like I was telling you about the animal communicator that told me that he liked the
mm,
smaller shows better than the bigger shows. But I think because he
mm,
probably felt my stress at the bigger shows because I felt more pressure than at the
mm,
smaller shows that maybe felt a little more fun.
for sure.
Um, but I feel like it's a fascinating topic because they want to please us.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
where is that line of finding just yeah, keep telling me more about your journey and where it went from there.
Yeah, before I keep going, my upon reflection and all the I don't think you can get it wrong.
Mm,
Like, I don't think you can get
that's
it wrong
good.
when you witness yourself and your horse in your power and you know that you're being guided on this soul journey together. You can't get it wrong, and your timing is your timing. And it's like, upon reflection, when you think about it, even from my standpoint, I wouldn't have the influence and the capacity to be able to support people the way that I do had everything just been smooth.
Right.
That's a very different way of supporting people that isn't necessarily helping people get from there to here, you know? So I have a lot of gratitude for the journey. Yes, it's been really big to kind of navigate all of the emotions and reflections and beliefs and reality checks along the way. But at the same time, like, we came together for a reason. And I can see, kind of looking back, how it's all kind of created this story arc together. And here we are. So, like I said, I didn't really have a pathway to kind of go, oh, okay, here's how you compete and here's how you can improve what you're doing while you're competing, right?
Mm,
Even if
mhm.
that was just like an entry point and that led to something else, I didn't really have that. The only person I could see that was kind of creating a bit of a bridge with this was a guy that I followed from overseas, Will Rogers, and he was showcasing these tarp performances with dressage horses ridden and at liberty, waving these huge plastic tarps over the horses. And I was like, beautiful horses, check. Sensitive horses, check. Still riding, check. Like, preparing them for different environments at home
Mhm.
first and showcasing that it's possible, like in a very extreme way. Cool. Okay, where is that here? That is not here. He didn't have an online platform then, all of these kind of things. So I was just kind of having this seeded. And along my journey, so the first season I had competing Bruce, things went really, really well. We won quite a lot of things and it was great. Like, it was really awesome. And my ego was getting really pumped up by people telling us how great we were and how beautiful he is and how much we're going to win at all these things and yada, yada. And I love that. And then in the second season, we got a lot more random results. Like, one day we would win and the next day we would come last out of a small group and not perform any differently. And it was just really up and down, up and down. And everyone, once again, was still telling me, oh, I thought you would have placed better. I thought you would have placed higher. And I was feeling good at the end of our workout. I was like, yes, we did great. But then the moment I got the placing, that would just completely dictate my mood. Like, it didn't even matter. And that was really upsetting to me as well, because I'm like, I want to be able to hold on to what actually does matter to us, which is the partnership and the growth that we're having together in this shared experience. Like, why put him through all of this if I'm miserable this whole time and I know he's not happy either? Like, at least if he's going to be holding himself together, I could be happy about the quality of work that we're bringing forward and comparing what we did that day to the last week or whatever. So I just reached a real tipping point where I was just like, he's not happy, I'm not happy. What are we doing? I need to just stop. And then it was kind of the end of the season anyway. So we just took a pause, zoomed out, and I was just like, okay, didn't really know where things were going to go from there. And then a job opportunity popped up working with that trainer I mentioned overseas. I applied for the job thinking I wasn't going to get it, because why would they want someone from Australia when it's in Germany? And we chatted, got along really well. And he said, when are you booking your ticket? And then within a few months, I was in Germany, like learning from this guy and learning about the horsemanship and learning about preparing the horses from for different environments from home. And that was a real missing piece that I was searching for at that point in my more traditional way of working with horses journey, while weaving in the horsemanship. So that
Mm-hmm.
was a huge catalyst for me. Just being able to fill in that gap and being like, why does everyone not know this? Like, if you want to work with horses in that more traditional space and compete, this should just be common knowledge. Like, I don't understand why this hasn't been brought forward. But once again, it's like, we've always done it this way. This is just how you do it. And preparing your horse at home first, yeah, it's going to require a lot more time. But I always found it fascinating when you compare, like, you wouldn't teach your horse to do a walk to canter transition at a competition. You train that at home first. Why do people expect horses to be comfortable with a crowd clapping at a competition? Wouldn't you train that at home first too?
So how did you do that? I mean, something like that.
So you break it down. So you want to isolate different elements. You want to look at whether something is making noise, whether something is approaching them, whether something is moving, or whether something is touching them. And you want to get them comfortable with each of these individual elements isolated first. And you want to teach them how to go from a little bit stressed to relaxed, so that nervous system regulation work, and
Mm.
really allowing them to find that relaxed posture in between when they're standing still and when they're moving on the ground first, and you can transition that under saddle. And then what you do is you start to combine the elements together, you start to make them more random, and then you start to weave in things that perhaps they've been more fearful of in the past, because they've already learned how to respond to pressure in more of a way that helps them find relaxation. So then you can add in the thing that they may have been worried about in the past and start to help them bridge the gap. So, for example, a client of mine years ago, she had this really hot and sensitive warm blood who was terrified of trucks. For some reason, terrified of them. She'd taken him through this exposure training regime with different tools. So this is where you can use your flag, or you can use a dressage whip if they're not terrified of that. You can use a bottle with rocks in it to make noises. Like, there's lots of different things you can use in a really sequential way that honors their emotions and your emotions. So she taught him how to respond, and one day she didn't realize, but behind his paddock, the neighbors were deciding to seed the paddock using a truck. And he was in his paddock, and normally if she'd known, she would have taken him away, because otherwise he's going to go nuts. He ran around for a bit and then he stopped in the middle and he just lowered his head. And he just was able to generalize this response of like, this helps me feel better. This is how I can do this. And I've had other clients share similar things where their horses will get scared, and because they've done all this prep work, the horse will just kind of lower their head and develop this curiosity to move towards the thing that they're worried about, because that's what we've taught them to do. We've kind of established a new neural pathway. And for really sensitive horses, this is amazing, because they just want to be told what to do. And when you can help them figure out what to do in a situation, that allows them to feel a lot more confident. So, yeah,
So teaching them how to re-regulate themselves when their nervous system like spikes.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you start in a space where you're there and you're in a controlled environment, so there's that co-regulation that can happen. You can help them find the answer, and then over time, as you repeat this, they start to learn what that answer is that helps them feel better, and what the movement patterns in their body is that helps them feel better. So then they naturally seek that, or you can help them find that a lot easier. So it's sort of like, if those are familiar with Celeste Lazarus's work, I look at it as like pillar one, but you're
Hmm.
adding in different external stimulus and helping them find pillar one, slowly adding in the different external stimulus with them
That's
standing still, with them moving on the ground and then under saddle. And it's also really powerful from a rider perspective, because how often I remember like riding a horse at one show, and as soon as the speakers were behind him, he hated it. And we were just kind of going sideways across the arena because he just didn't like this noise behind him. And it's really hard when you get triggered in a situation like that to also help your horse, because there's a lot of layers. But when you go through a process like this, you start to also train yourself like, hey, we're good. This is what we can do. And you know that somebody's supporting you, or you can turn off the stimulus at any point in time, so that then you're going to feel more confident, rather than you're just stuck in a flooding situation of, fuck, the speaker's here. I have no way of turning this off. Like, let's just hold on for dear life. Right. So
right.
I was able to learn this framework, and in a really sequential way, and I could see how it worked for these horses overseas. And it worked especially well for horses that hadn't had previous baggage. So for horses that already were sensitive to sensitive to light pressure, like hadn't been hadn't been handled in a way where they've like had a really terrible experience in the past by accident. So, for example, there was one horse in training that was a stallion, a successful stallion, and then had some head shaking stuff that was going on. And they were like, he's going to be an amazing Grand Prix horse, but we don't know what to do with him. We need help. And so there was a lot of the exposure training stuff with him where if he would get worried, he would just flat out panic, where the other horses wouldn't flat out panic. Like he would just stay in the flat out panic, and it was really hard to get him back. Whereas the other horses might have a response, but then they come back and they're like, oh, I'm still here. Whereas he would just have that kind of ingrained response because he'd learned to pull away and run, because that's what had happened to him in the past. So it just goes to show the whole preparation is better than cure kind of thing, but there is still a lot you can do to help those horses that have had those difficult experiences. So yeah, I was able to
Yeah.
bridge this gap from that more practical standpoint then.
Yeah. So like that, those horses that have had a bad experience take longer because you're having
Yeah,
to well, first of all, you have to re-find like a neutral, I guess you could say.
totally.
I have a horse like
And
that right now that I'm working with, and I finally feel like he's to a place where we've re-regulated his nervous system enough that we can like actually start to do something. But it's
yeah,
taken a long time to get to that point
yeah,
because he had so many triggers that we had to work through.
yeah.
Um, but it does feel good to be in that space now. I wanted to just add a funny little story about the
Mm,
what you were saying about, why do people not train these things at home, clapping or whatever. I had a little pony that I used to lease that I taught lessons on, and she took me a while to figure out. We would go to horse shows, and before
mm,
the kids would, always a kid on her, right?
mm,
They'd ring the bell or blow the whistle or whatever, and then this little pony she would take off with the little kids. And I figured it out.
mm-hmm.
She was afraid of the freaking bell, but it was like when they would do it right behind her, like because it depended on when
Totally.
they did it. So they did it right. So anyway, it got to the point where we were practicing with like bell noises on on the cell phone, at home to try to get her
Yes.
used to it. But also then I just had the kids tell the judge when they walked by to please don't ring the bell until I'm to the other end of the arena. And
Yeah.
that helped us in the meantime. But yeah, interesting. Just there's so many things that horses that are going to horse shows do
Mm.
have to deal with that they aren't dealing with necessarily in a home environment. So you went to Germany,
Yes.
and how long were you there for?
So I was there for 10 months. So while I was away, I ended up leasing Bruce out to somebody else because I thought I was going to stay in Germany a bit longer. So I
Mm,
leased him out and then I ended up coming back home after 10 months and then got Bruce back. But it was interesting because when I got him back, I think I didn't really have the desire to compete him. I think I was still
mm,
kind of sitting with all of the emotion and stuff that came to the surface and doing things differently. And I started to implement more of the groundwork and things like that. But it's interesting because back then I could feel that something else was off that I was avoiding, but I didn't really have answers to that until later down the track. Um, but I did work with a friend's horse that she had sent. This was a young horse that got started under saddle. She'd sent it to this trainer to eventually show. And then this trainer was having a difficult time with her and sent her back. And then she said, Felicity, do you want to have a go? So I started working with her and then took her through all of this process and then did a few shows with her before COVID hit.
mm,
So with Bruce, I can sense in hindsight, once again, this avoidance pattern can come up for me when I know something is off and I either am aware of it or I'm not aware of it yet and it's to come. So I think with Bruce as well, I could tell there were moments where I started kind of riding him again and playing with bitless and different things like that because I was just curious and playing around with different things. And I could just tell that he wasn't 100%. And I think after riding these other horses overseas as well, he just didn't feel right. And I had more of a contrast to kind of feel that. And then he started becoming more lame and then
mm.
ended up having this big bump on his knee. And then that led me to get x rays. And then I was told that I shouldn't ride him because he's got severe arthritis.
Do you think that's why he wasn't enjoying the work before or the shows before, or is that something kind of separate?
I think it's separate. Like I
Mm,
definitely I think for him, I would imagine just like a person that has grown up kind of knowing pain and not knowing any different. I think that was very much him. Looking
mm,
back, the first time Mum and I looked at him, the coach that I was working with at the time sold him to me, and he had this massive paddle, massive. And we were like, oh, he paddles. And they were like, oh, that'll straighten out over time. Like, it it doesn't. Anyway, not with
yeah.
his conformation anyway. So he
Yeah.
had a huge paddle. He's a 17 hand high thoroughbred that had raced a little bit. And he's a bit over at the knee as well. He's really broad chested. Like we just were kind of blurred over all of these things because we were told that he was going to win all these things and yada, yada, yada. And he was lovely, like a real gentle giant, beautiful soul. And so I think looking back, it was all of those things. But I remember there was a moment where he suddenly was just like lame in a lesson that I was having when early on. This would have been when he was 4 or 5, and we got it checked out. Nothing was showing on the X-rays, and then later on he developed a splint.
Mm,
And when we went to kind of get all this checked out, they told us that he'd had a bone chip removed in his knee before from when he was racing, and there was already arthritis present in his knees at 4. So I can imagine just from his racing start and that kind of start to life for him and being in this really big body as well that isn't the best organized.
mm,
I think he was probably used to that level of pain, um, or a level of pain. And I mean, it might have played into it, but I think in general it was more just probably pressure carried over from the racing days
mm.
into the show ring days because my method of helping him through anything once again was more. And I'm talking, I was just not good at groundwork to the point where if he was really full of himself on the ground, I would be like, Mom, get me the saddle. I've got to get on as fast as possible. And I would just get on and canter him through it. And he would figure it out. So if I
That's
look at
so,
that now,
I
yeah.
just have to laugh because I also at one point in my life remember feeling like I felt safer on my horses than on the ground. I mean, not the horses I have now, but
Yes,
like when I was younger or, you know,
100%.
but now obviously I know a lot more than I knew then.
Yeah.
But yeah, groundwork. I think what's interesting is um and just kind of speaking from my own experience of different
Mm.
students that I've had is that there's such a nuance or there's such an attention to detail to groundwork that I think that if people don't understand it, they don't understand what they're really trying to accomplish, it's boring, or they don't understand the point of it because they just want to get on and ride because that's more interesting. At
Sure.
least for me too. I know that as I've learned more and I understand what it is that I'm looking to accomplish with various in-hand exercises or different ground work type scenarios, it becomes more intriguing because you have, I don't know, like a measurable goal that you're trying to accomplish
Mm.
versus, I guess I'm kind of rambling, but I'm just thinking about a couple
I know
students
what
that
you
I have,
mean.
where I have one girl who she's like, she doesn't want to do the groundwork. It's too boring. She just wants to get on and ride. And now with all the experience that I have, is just like, oh, but you really need to do, you know what I mean? It's like people are
Yeah,
at their own place on their journey, right?
for sure.
I mean, I didn't even know what groundwork was. I remember when I was in 4-H as a kid and I was trying to learn how to lunge a horse from a freaking pamphlet, which it's really hard to learn how to lunge a horse from a
Absolutely.
pamphlet.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
anyway, I don't know. I just think well, I want to kind of go back to your journey too a little bit because you've had a lot of things that have brought you to where you are now and you are
Mm-hmm.
helping so many people
Mm.
who find themselves in these positions where their relationship with the horse isn't what they thought it was going to be. But
Yeah,
you have kind of these different skills, including the animal communication and all the different healing modalities. It's so all encompassing. Go ahead and just talk maybe a little bit more about how that all evolved and
yeah,
where you are today and what you're able to do to help support the people that find you.
sure. One thing I want to touch on before I go there is just with the groundwork piece. Like, I think
Mhm.
groundwork is like anything that you're doing with your horse when you're on the ground. So, with groundwork, I think a lot of people think groundwork is like certain types of moves and things like that you do with your horse. And yes, there's an element to that. But I think just zoom out. Anything that you do with your horse on the ground, whether it's leading them from the paddock to the tie ups, whether it's saddling them up and you're standing next to them, whether you're getting them to stand at the mounting block or as you get on, that is all groundwork. And I really like to look at it through the lens of if you're leading your horse in a way where if you were riding them, you wouldn't be happy with this dynamic and their responsiveness levels to you, that's not that's not a match. You're not setting yourself up for success on the ground or under saddle because I'm going to guess that a lot of what's happening on the ground will be carried over under saddle. If your horse doesn't respond to your cues, doesn't listen to your body language, pulls forward, lags behind, is better on one side of their body than the other side of the body, it's likely all of the telltale signs will be there on the ground. If your horse won't stand at the mounting block or they struggle to find that kind of relaxed posture, I'm going to guess that that same thing happens when you're riding them. So I think when you can just bridge the gap in a very tangible way for people to just be like, hey, notice that what's happening here is also happening under saddle. And if you bridge the gap here, you can transfer a lot of the cues that you're using on the ground to under saddle. And it's just a hell of a lot easier for both of you. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to add that there for those that are like, don't have a desire to like teach the horse shoulder in on the ground or teach them all of these extravagant ways of like moving, but just the basics handling of your horse, that is groundwork too. And when you can finesse that and just weave that into your current routine, it makes things infinitely better. So that's what I wanted to just touch
No, that's
on.
good.
Okay.
That's good. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I
Mhm.
just felt called to say that because I think if you're not familiar with the full spectrum of groundwork, like me in the past
Yeah,
would have been like, oh, groundwork is the dressage moves but on the ground, and I don't really care for that.
right.
Like, and so I think yeah, I just want to touch on that. So in terms of bridging all of these other elements, they've essentially come through what's unfolded on my own journey. So I originally was working with the horses in that more natural horsemanship style way from what I had learned. And then things with that started to feel off too. Like I could still feel that I was asking the horses for more that still didn't sit right for me because I was still playing with the competing at that point in time and everything. And then even with my in-person lessons, I felt like the horse was done after 5 minutes, their person's done after 5 minutes. They just need to practice this every day and then I'll come back, but I'm here because they've paid me for 45 minutes. Like, what do I do, kind of thing. So I just noticed that what I was really bringing forward isn't a quick fix, and it requires commitment and a longer term approach. And I really wanted to empower these people to be able to have the results that I was seeing. So then I started creating this online program. I had success in person with these clients, but I wanted to put the power back in their hands even more rather than taking over, which I sometimes did. And I created this online program. And then, kind of, when COVID hit, that was all around the same time. And then I launched into this online 12-week program where it was a 12-week course guiding them through all of the principles, the groundwork, the exposure training, and then weekly support every step of the way in a one-on-one setting first. And then I did groups. So that kind of unfolded. And then at the same time, I've obviously, in the background, I'm going through my own personal journey. So I had a big spiritual awakening as all of this was unfolding, learning about human design. Then that led me to neuro-linguistic programming, so diving into the mindset stuff even more. And naturally, in the sessions with my clients, even when they bought into a horsemanship program, because the horsemanship stuff is actually quite simple when you break it down and they implement it, 90% of the time they would come to me in a one-on-one call with a mindset thing, because they would be like, oh, my horse, we had not a very good day, and it was just like, what's happened? And I'd be like, okay, well, did you get any video of it? They did, yes, but I'm really embarrassed by it. I'm like, okay, well, let's take a look at it. And the video is like not even bad. Like, it's not even bad. Sure, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. They asked a few more times than perhaps they could have, and they're just not feeling great about it. So I would support them with that. Or if they had fear coming up, and then because of the NLP, I would start to weave in these other processes, which were very healing. And then they would witness these really cool results with their horses. So it just naturally kind of unfolded. And then the same thing with the animal communication. I started going on my own journey to explore that after not thinking that was something that was available to me. And then it was, and then I wove in the healing. So as I would learn my own courses, going on my own personal journey, not really with the intention to weave it specifically into my work, I would naturally go through that process. And then naturally, a client would come to me with something that I had just learned about recently that was a new thing, but I knew and felt confident enough to kind of play with it with them, or give them an extra session to kind of explore that together. And it would be amazing. So I just started to witness this real co-creation coming forward, which is where it all blends together, because I just recognize, like, someone can come to me with the same fear, like 5 people can come to me with the same fear, and the approach is going to be different for all of them, depending on where they're at and what their like foundation is like, what their horse is guiding them toward. And this is where I really like having this big toolkit of things that I can draw upon, so that then I can play with, okay, whatever I think they're needing support with, whatever approach is good for them. So even, for example, the other week I had a client, and I like to use tapping sometimes, which is a modality where you tap on meridian points and you're using it to kind of shift beliefs and let go of limiting beliefs and install kind of new empowering beliefs. And I said, do you like tapping? And she was like, to be honest, I've tried it before. I don't really love it. Some people don't love it. And I said, cool, let's go on this somatic journey instead. Or let's explore this emotional release process instead. Or let's do this instead. So I've got all of these kind of different resources I can draw upon based on what's worked for me in the past and what I know has worked for others, because everybody is just so different. And I think that's where I really love working with people in a very intimate setting, so I can offer that tailored approach rather than just having like a huge group of people in a setting. Like, most of my things are small group, over 3 months together. Let's really feel into what's coming up and create this beautiful pathway that works for you.
Talk more about the NLP, the neuro linguistic programming. Is that what you called it?
Yeah. So
What is that?
I
What
I
is that?
So it's really interesting because with the NLP, there's kind of different processes that you can dive into. And I know that there's different courses that teach you to become these NLP practitioners and things like that. But there were a couple of processes that we dove into that I really kind of latched onto. And I even would have brought them forward in your experience in the intuitive equestrians. So, similar. I've
Okay.
kind of put my own flair on it. So two that worked really, really well for me was one called Releasing Trapped Emotions. So
Mm,
that was guiding people on a journey to connect with the trapped emotion in their body, go on a journey to figure out where the root of that was, learn the lessons they need to learn, and then those lessons can be applied to every event from then until now to essentially energetically kind of give them a clean slate. It doesn't mean that they won't ever feel the emotion again, but they're going to feel it in a less heightened way. Because you know those moments where you're like, oh my goodness, I had this massive fear response and it felt really irrational. It's because it's not just from that moment. Your body is recalling all of these other stored memories from this lifetime, perhaps from previous generations and past lives, that are coming up to the surface. And that's why in those moments you're like, oh my goodness, why did I like lose it with that? Like, what was happening? It's because it was never just about that moment. It was a trigger stacking compound effect that was held in your body. And originally I just read off the script. Like, I had a script that I would follow and I'd read off it. And this is where, in hindsight, diving into the energy healing stuff more specifically, I realized I was doing that the whole time. I just didn't realize I was doing it. There's kind of, it's basically the way you use language to kind of navigate your life. So there was another one which is all about kind of stepping into your future self and really kind of installing beliefs in your future self. We dove into a bit of hypnosis stuff. And yeah, there's just kind of an amalgamation of things.
So that's neuro-linguistic programming. I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
I, in hindsight, I recognize that the course I did, I didn't know how different courses are, but I really
Mhm.
just dove into the course, took the pieces that I resonated with or that I felt compelled to kind of bring forward. Oh, there's also a really cool one called a parts integration. So you can look at different parts and you can bring them forward and bring harmony to those two parts of you and kind of step into that new reality. Um, but I recognize my way of learning things, and this might trigger some people that are very like to the book and feel like they have to do things the right way in terms of following everything. Like, I would just learn different things and watch the videos once, and the pieces that landed with me, I was like grabbing that, trying it, tried it. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't work, I would tweak it just intuitively and be like, well, let me bring in this piece here because that makes sense. Because if we're going to release this trapped emotion, but they're not feeling safe to do that, maybe there's a part that's in the way. Okay, cool, let's
Mm.
move to the part, or let's bring in some tapping, or like, I feel like I'm a bit of a spiritual DJ.
I love it.
Like,
That's
I've just got
great.
all of these things, and I could be like, oh yeah, let me just DJ mix it up with you.
Spiritual
It's really
DJ.
cool.
I know that when I think the first course I did with you was the Epiphany course, actually.
Oh yeah, the human
Um,
design.
and then the human design piece, and then honestly, just learning that being a manifesting generator, that it was okay that I didn't finish things because
Yes.
I maybe got already what I needed and I didn't need to like beat myself up for the fact I didn't finish.
Yeah.
And the once I kind of got that permission, like, oh wow, because yeah, there's so many things that I quote unquote haven't finished, but like I didn't maybe need to finish them because I got what I needed out of
Totally.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I'm the same in terms of being a manifesting generator, and I'm going to guess that my speed and probably your speed in terms of how you move through things is probably really triggering for people that don't move in the same way, because we just naturally energetically move quick. And
yeah.
it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. A lot going on.
Yeah.
Um, so just recently, maybe it was even today, I don't even know, you posted a couple more slides. You said, as you allow yourself to appreciate the present moment, your horse finds stillness more easily. This is just one I screenshotted. I would
Yes.
just screenshot the ones that would kind of speak to me.
Sure.
Um, you said, as you expand your capacity and regulate your nervous system, your horse feels more grounded in different environments. That one also really spoke to me,
Mm.
just given my own journey with Ugo, actually, too.
Yeah.
And then you wrote, as you understand yourself more deeply at a soul level, your soul connection with your horse strengthens.
Yeah.
Those just really stood out to me. And then, okay, sorry, there's one more. You
Yeah.
said, your horse is guiding you to the inner work that you are being invited to explore. I feel like you are really good at helping guide people through this spiritual journey, if you want to call it that, with their horses, and just helping people. I love that what you interjected there, that everything is is in the right timing, like you can't get it wrong. Because
Yeah.
that's another thing that I've been thinking about a lot as I'm always trying to immerse myself into different philosophies of training. And
Mm.
I'm always a sponge. I always want to learn as much as possible, basically because I want to be making my own choices, feel like I'm making educated choices, first of all, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But one thing I've really, I guess is kind of, think about stuff kind of coming up to the forefront in your mind is that there's such a kind of a desire on certain level of certain people putting stuff out there that they want to say, this is the right way, that's the wrong way. This is the right way, that's the wrong way. But what
Yeah.
if it can all coexist, which I've even heard you say before, and
Yeah.
that there isn't necessarily a right way or a wrong way, but it depends on where you're at in your journey.
Mm.
And I'm throwing a lot out here because I'm going to let you talk about it in a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the other thing is too, is the other piece I find with my own journey is that for a long time, and I'm still kind of struggling with this a little bit, but my desire to learn has been so great that I almost gave my own power away to all the people that
Mm-hmm.
I was learning from. And it has taken
Mm-hmm.
me a long time to get to this point where I can acknowledge that it's important for me to learn from different people, but it's
Yeah.
also important for me um, to kind of own it in a sense that I don't have to agree with everything that they're teaching, and I
Yes.
can take the things that resonate and leave the
Yeah.
things that don't behind.
Mm.
And I'm grateful for the years that I've spent that have, taught me how to be a good rider with good posture and good, biomechanics as a rider, and learning the biomechanics of the horse is really important.
Mm.
But then you can delve into this other side of things where I have those skill sets now that are kind of like a given because I spent a lot of time doing those things.
Yes.
Um, there's just a lot to it. You know what I mean? And that's where everybody's journey is going to be unique and different. And like you said, it's not wrong. You are where you're
Mm.
at for a reason. But I think
Mm.
also being open to, hmm, I don't know how you want to say it. I mean, where the horses are really guiding us. I mean, I know some people don't believe in that the horses are even guiding us.
Mm.
Like a lot of people aren't to that place yet where they can see that the horses have this
Mm.
bigger spiritual role in our life. I'm just trying to make sense of it all myself still. I mean, I'm like
Totally.
so excited about the things that I've learned. But
Mm.
also there's a lot of confusion when you start to go, huh,
Yeah.
what should we be doing or what shouldn't we be doing? Or you've got people telling you, don't do this, do this. Anyway, just expound. You have a lot of wisdom to share, so I'd love to hear your take
Yeah.
on all of that.
So I think as I've gone further along my journey and kind of deepened into the fact that multiple truths get to coexist, and I think also when you look at things from a standpoint of marketing, there's a lot of marketing that is very heavy on the opinion and it's this way, not this way, and that is right, and this is wrong, and you should do this, and you should not do that, because that's essentially a lot of language that's brought forward with the marketing. And I've just gotten to the point where I I can't get behind saying things like that. Like even I released a podcast on my own platform yesterday, and the title is The Bravery Myth: Why Pushing Through Fear Breaks Trust with Your Horse, and what real courage looks like. But I expand in the episode of like sometimes pushing through fear doesn't break trust with your horse. It depends.
Hmm.
How big is the fear? What's going on? And I think that's where there's just a lot of it depends, which is where in my small group spaces, my mentorship experiences, we can dive so much into the duality that comes through that, but it's much harder to convey that in a bigger platform like social media because that's just not the conversation to bring forward because it's so specific. So I think it's really important for people to remember if you're consuming a lot of things at that more kind of social media free content perspective, if it's brought forward in a much broader way, just know that it's not always angled or right for you. And if the messaging is very kind of direct, know that it's not always black and white. And I think most people that are bringing this language forward know that, and perhaps in more of their intimate settings where there's more tailored support, they can bring that forward. but it can be hard to try to fit things into a certain caption or a certain amount of slides or whatever, because you want to give the caveats and the nuance, but then you lose that polarity and you lose that magnetism by just saying what you want to say. And I think everyone has a different way that they want to bring things forward. So I just think our horses are really inviting us to step into our power. And I think as well, what I've really kind of noticed as I've zoomed out on my journey, working with people at all different openness levels to the spiritual component with our horses, I'm cool with all of it. Like, you could listen to this and be like, I still don't fully believe in it, but feel curious about going on a journey and maybe focus on more of the practical stuff. Cool, let's go on a journey and do that and see what happens. There's still a lot you can explore there. And maybe you have your own personal growth journey through that, but you frame it in a different way. Cool, you do that, right? Maybe you lean in and you're just like, no, I'm fully in. The horse is just guiding me. Let's explore this and let's look at all the energetic. Cool, like, let's do that too. I think that's where it's helpful to just have the different options available and just recognize, like, what works for one person doesn't work for everyone. And if other people are having success with someone, or you're feeling FOMO around like needing to learn from a certain person or wanting to do it, but maybe the languaging just isn't connecting with you, just know that, like, that doesn't mean that person's wrong or that you're stupid. It just means you're speaking different languages. You're on a different frequency bandwidth at that point in time. Maybe in the future, you're going to go on your own journey and you'll find a way to connect again, or maybe you won't, but you've got somebody else out there that is a match for you, and that's okay. So I think, once again, it's just, when you make things right and wrong, you're essentially becoming a victim to certain things, because you're saying, unless I do this in this way, I am wrong. I'm a victim to this thing. And I don't think that's empowering at all. And if you're saying they're wrong because they should be doing, you're making them the villain. Once again, you're the victim. That's not helping the situation either. How can you just see everything as neutral? And I think it requires a lot of self-responsibility and personal power to get to a spot where you're just like, okay, this is what I believe in at this point in time, but I also understand that somebody else can believe that too, and that's all right. And I think when you really look at things from a lens of like sovereignty, for example, I'm really big on words. Like, I'll often pull people up about like the words that they use. And
Mm.
even when it comes to like packaging of things and the brands and the names of things, like, I'm quite fussy. And I was talking with a friend yesterday about how I was looking at this like herbal blend to support my mare. And they're all called like Moody Mare or Monster Mare or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't like the energy of that word, like going into the bag, like going into the blends, like, that's annoying, kind of thing. And then my friend said to me, like, are you gonna make that bigger than you? And I'm like,
Mm.
no, let's not make that bigger than me, because I could choose to buy that. I can choose to take the label off. I can choose to set my own intentions for the blend, and it can change the energetic state like that. Where am I losing my power and making something else bigger than me because I've just like given everything away to it? And I think it's really cool when you reflect on perhaps where you are giving your power away to all these other things, where you are being a victim to all of these other things, and you just go, you know what, that's just not for me. And even, for example, I went and watched a clinic with Elsa Sinclair on the weekend, just the first day. And she's got a method called freedom training. And it's a really, really slow, beautiful, empathetic approach, like all at liberty at the beginning. And I I can take pieces that I like, but in terms of, do I want to work with horses in the same way she does, spending like 5 hours a day with them, making really, really subtle changes? I don't want to do that.
Mm.
And I know that my journey with my horses at this point in time is calling me to just be like, this is what we're doing. Let's just feel fucking good about it.
Right.
Because I think the more congruent you feel about what you're doing, that's when it works. So for Elsa, she in conversation said, like, she only wants to work with horses in this way. So if she had tried to kind of be quicker, that would just not feel congruent for her.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I can have moments of being super slow, but not as slow as she's going to be the whole training protocol. I can have moments here and there, but then in our time together, I'm probably going to ask a little bit more, because that's just how I energetically want to work with them, what feels good for me. They also respond a lot better because they're not like, why are you doing this thing that actually you don't want to do? Like, just do the thing you want to do. And provided all of the like foundation is good, it will just flow. So this is where I get really hung up on like teaching people the principles behind the methods, because the principles are all the same. The methods are all different. They all work for the people that are aligned with those methods.
Hmm.
But this person doing TRT method is not going to like this method over here. That's like the Elsa Sinclair's method, likely. You know?
Let's talk about maybe what's really important in all of these different methods, um, per just being able to hone in and read your horses, like
Yes.
if they are okay with it, or how maybe you can provide some insight for somebody who maybe isn't super intuitive or in tune with their horse,
Mm.
or maybe they don't listen to the intuitive messages that they do get, but to help them, how would you explain to somebody to help them tap into what their horses are telling them, or to know if you're aligned or not aligned with what you're doing with your horse? Maybe that's the question.
I think from a more practical standpoint for people, like it's just connecting with, once again, that body language piece from the horse, how they're responding and how you're responding as well. Like you can feel what's going on in your body if something's a yes or if something's a no. Even if you don't have much of a connection with your body, there'll be some sort of felt sense there, which is why you've got enough sensitivity to still listen to something like this. Because if you didn't have the sensitivity there, you wouldn't be listening to something like this. You just write it off, right? But there's enough of a sensitivity there, even if you are mostly living from the neck up, and I have been there, like it's a thing. There's enough there that's like, this feels wrong, or this feels right, or something's going on. And you might not have the knowledge or the confidence in yourself to be able to figure out what your next steps are. Maybe your next step is to go like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Something feels wrong. This is what I want to do. How can I open up to figure out who's the person that's going to help me like lean in that direction? And let's just see what happens, because then the journey will start to unfold for you. So that could be your next step. Or maybe you already have like an intuitive, no, I need to do this instead, and you just haven't been doing it, or you need to just own that more. You'll know. There's a knowing deep down that I think even the most disconnected person like that I have mentored, you know what I mean? Like from the sense of connection to their body or trust in themselves, there's still enough breaking through, which is why, like I said, they're exploring things like this, because there's something they're searching for, a missing piece. They just don't know what that is yet.
And you say like from the neck up, meaning they're not in tune with their body, or
Mm-hmm.
is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I think the next piece to that is like having the confidence to listen to your own intuition. Because I know how many times, like
Yeah.
maybe I think I know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm like afraid to do it because I'm afraid to
Mm-hmm.
offend somebody else, or I'm afraid to go against. I mean, I'm working through all these things. I've been working through
Yeah,
all
of
these things,
course.
but to go, oh, or even sometimes I think we don't realize we're doing it, or we don't realize that we're, maybe it even goes back to giving our power away. But like if I go, oh, okay, I signed up for some mentorship experience, and oh yeah, it's not really feeling super aligned. Maybe I want to, not a mentorship experience, but like a group thing. Maybe I
Sure.
want to back out of that thing, and then I'm like, oh no, I signed up for it, so I need to like commit myself to finishing it or whatever. You know what I mean? Or oh, I don't want to offend the person because if I tell them that I don't want to do it, then sorry, I'm not verbalizing this very clearly.
I know what you
But like
mean.
I signed up for a thing, and it wasn't even a horse thing, actually. It was a non-horse related thing, and I felt really called to do it. This goes back to being a manifesting generator, is actually what I think. I felt really called to do it. It was a 6 month thing, and two
Mm,
months in I'm like, I don't think this is for me.
sure.
But and I'm thinking I got 4 more months of this thing that I said that I was gonna do, but I don't really
Yeah.
feel like I don't even feel like spending the time in the group calls or the group chats or whatever. I don't even feel like it's benefiting me the way that maybe I just needed the first call. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Or maybe you just needed to have the experience. I've been in a situation like this. Although in hindsight, I can see that joining probably I already had a knowing that it wasn't quite right for me. But the
Yeah.
most potent experience from that was choosing me and deciding to opt out.
Yeah, and so I had to do that recently, and then it took me a little bit of time to get up the courage just to say, hey, you know what? I think I need to just like
Yeah,
quietly exit because I think this just isn't aligned with for what I'm doing right now. But that was
totally.
really it was really interesting to me how hard that was for me to do
It's
because
massive.
I was like, no, I said I was gonna sign. I said I would do
It's
this
the good girl
thing.
conditioning.
Yeah, I was like, I said I would
And
do
it's a
this
people
thing.
pleasing thing too.
I should follow it through. And I'm thinking, but why? Why do 4 more months of something that I know that I'm not really
Yeah.
isn't aligned or it's just not resonating for me or whatever, right? I don't even
And
know
I
why
think
I'm
with everything being a co creation, like you having that experience was also the exact experience that the person who was running this thing needed to have too. They needed to be able to have a moment like that, whether they responded in a way that was like open and expansive or not. Like for me, I just come back to that integrity piece, like always bringing forward the sentiment of like, if something's not feeling right for you, you want to leave early, you don't want to do the homework, you don't want to like bring something forward, you don't want to speak on a call, you don't want to come to the call, don't. I'm okay. If I have my own feelings about it, I will deal with that. But if I am telling you to follow what feels right and true with your horse, wouldn't that make sense to do that across the board? And isn't this a great place to actually play with that in a safe
right.
way? But there's a lot of spaces that it doesn't feel safe to do that because people get offended or they make it about you. And there's this villain victim dynamic that comes in and it's really shitty. So I think when you come back to the truth of it all, of like, okay, I'm the CEO of my life. I chose to do this thing. This isn't feeling right for me anymore. Anyone that wants what's best for me will either have a conversation with me to be like, hey, let's talk about it to see if there's some ways that I can help you, or get to a point of being like, you know what, that feels true. Cool.
Right. Right. I think and I don't even know where my brain is going in this conversation, but then I think back to other things like when I was younger
Yeah.
and when you were learning like being a working student or being whatever. And I know there was a lot of times when things would be hard and maybe you didn't want to do it and you didn't want to power through or
Yeah.
push through, but I'm grateful that I did. So like how do you decipher the difference? I think that could be
I
something
think
that's
I think you'll just there'll be a knowing, or you either keep going and then it will feel like you make a bit of a breakthrough or not. But I think the more you go along this journey with your horse and listening to your horse and listening to yourself, the more you increase your sensitivity. And I think you increase your connection with like whether something is like, okay, I just need to continue through this or I need to stop. Like you will have that. And even if you stop, you'll have a moment in the future where it'll likely circle back something similar to give you another opportunity to say like, are you going to do that thing again or did you actually want to continue, so I think I just view every decision that I make as happening for me, and I don't think you can make a wrong decision. And I think when you look at things like that, then there's no like reflecting back on the past and kind of getting too hung up in did I make the right decision. You're never going to know. Well, you may as well tell the story that it was the right one.
actually that actually made me. Have you read the book Green Lights by Matthew
Yeah,
McConaughey?
ages ago.
Yeah, so he made some comment once where he's like, just make a choice. He's like, rather than like being afraid to make the choice forever, 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 he's like, make the choice. And he's like, if it's the wrong choice, you'll know. And then
Yes,
you can course
exactly.
correct.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. I
And
don't know.
if, for example, somebody was in my group and then they came to me politely and said, "Hey, this my time's feeling really complete in this space," and I said, "Okay, no worries," and then a week later they were like, "You know what? I sat with it and I'm not feeling 100%. Like, is there a way to come back in?" Like, provided it felt okay, I would be like, "Sure, come back in." Like, that's fine. You needed to have that experience. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like give them their money back and be like, oh yeah, you can have your money back and then you can come back. Like, no, you chose. This is the decision you chose. This is the decision you're choosing now. Okay, let's see how we go from here. And provided it's all done in an amicable way and it feels aligned, like, yeah, come back. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure how I got on this topic, but anyways.
I think in terms of like you were talking about all of the access to information and the right and the
Mm,
wrong, and we were kind of going on that
yeah.
path. But I think there comes a point where you just recognize like where your body and your soul is probably craving for a lot of like embodiment and integration of what you're learning.
Mhm.
And I
And there,
think also as your sensitivity increases, you likely feel the sensitivity, or not necessarily the sensitivity, the frequency of those that are marketing. And if they're marketing in a really FOMO, in a really right or wrong way, in a really like pushy way, even if there's an undertone of it, it's not necessarily obvious. You'll likely feel that, and you might start to think that that's about you, but you're likely picking up on the energetics that they've kind of emitted through the thing. And then I
mm,
think that's where some people can get into this funky dynamic. And it's just a real delicate dance, like navigating all of the pieces. Because you could be someone that's selling a course, and I've done this before. You're selling a course on this thing, but then you're having your own personal experience because you're like, oh my goodness, nobody signed up yet. Now I'm having my own experience and I'm having to embody my own stuff and I'm figuring it out. And I might put some stuff out that maybe doesn't feel completely clean. And then people are going to feel that, especially when you're marketing to very sensitive, connected people, which anybody listening to this is, whether you feel that or not. Like you just are. I, I just know that.
yeah, I love that. That's so true. And I think, yeah, I think I'm speaking now just from my own personal experiences. I think that the culture right now with how easily it is to access information, how
Yes,
easy it is to access courses, it is like information overload, man.
absolutely.
I mean, like I have my own journey on this whole like I'm so grateful for all these things that I've done. But then
Yeah.
there's like comes to a point where you're thinking, man, do I really need to do that? Or is it the FOMO? Like I'm just afraid of missing out on something. And
Yes.
or like how much stuff can I take in? Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes and I know it's not just me. I have other
Oh,
friends and
yeah.
people that I've are in different things with, and what did we call ourselves? Like you're just like a collector of courses because you want all the
Yeah.
things, you know. But yeah, I mean, do you have any advice, I guess, for people who are finding themselves in that space where they're feeling a little overwhelmed with so many
Yeah.
options and um I mean, I'm still struggling with it. Like I know you and I had talked at one point and I was like, okay, I'm not going to take any new classes until I do,
Yeah.
you and I had done a one-on-one, I think it is. Like until I do the ones that I have, and I still have not been able to completely honor that because then I'm like, ooh, that looks good. And I'm like, I gotta
So for
try that.
me, and I've been in that spot and also worked with many clients who've navigated this, is you want to look at why you feel the need to fill the space. Number one, to like spend that much time on social media to be able to have access to all of those things, to feel like you have to stay on people's email lists even though it feels energetically complete, to explore things that aren't actually the next step that's calling you, but you just have that FOMO about it anyway. You want to look at all of those things, like why are they compelling to you? And for me, when I kind of boil it down, like a lot of people will fill any space that they have to avoid feeling.
Hmm.
And it can be feeling good.
That's a good point,
So
actually.
that's why, in my experiences through the 3 month journeys, I'll have some clients that come in and they're like, oh, I've just done, this is the third course that I'm journeying through right now. I'm like, holy shit, like that's a lot to take in. And a lot of the times it'll just be I give them the permission slip to not follow any of my videos. They just come to the group call and I give them support to help them feel at peace with just the next step that they are being invited to take with their course and not do the other things. So that then they cultivate enough resource in their body because they're still feeling that support. They've still filled up the space with something that their body can get behind, but they're actually leaning into like, okay, how can I feel safe in the space? And okay, I'm supported over 3 months to kind of find my feet so that then they can start implementing the things. Or they could get to the end of my course and be like, you know what? I actually prefer learning in this way, and I actually have this option right here that I can explore instead. Great, do that. So I think it's a capacity thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think going on journeys to kind of do the somatic work to connect with your body, or working with people that can support you in that way, which is what I love to bring forward as well, is really, really helpful, because then you're you're working on the stuff that comes up when you feel that urgency, or whatever your nervous system tendency is, when you're like, oh, I feel like I need that, or like, oh my goodness, like, what's something to do, or like, there can be a lot of things. And if you start to implement and embody the things that you've already learned, oh, then you're going to feel successful. Do you feel comfortable feeling successful with that? Is it actually what you want to do? Does your soul just want to fuck everything off and just like delete social media and just enjoy your life? You'll know deep down what it is. But I think in those moments where you feel that urgency, or you feel that should, connect with your body if you can, or connect with the thought that's coming up around why. And I really love a simple question of like, is this distracting or is this enriching? Like,
Mm.
would pursuing this right now be distracting or enriching? And you'll know. And if you make a decision and then you figure out, like, oh, I said no to that thing and maybe actually that could have been supportive, okay, cool, you learned a lesson. Like, either way, you're going to learn. But I think it's the avoidance of feeling.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So now that I've taken us totally off topic, or it
Not
feels
really.
like, um,
Well, it's the same thing. Linking it back to the avoidance of me taking 18 months before I made a decision, it was the
hmm,
lack of capacity to feel what was coming up. I didn't
right.
have the capacity to feel the guilt and the shame and address that. So I shoved it down and pretended like everything was fine, because I didn't have the resource available to do that until things got to a point where I was just like, there was no other option. And that's why most people only make big changes in their life when they're at a fuck it moment. They're like, fuck it, there's no other option. I have to do this thing. Or like, I'm tired of feeling this way. Let's move in this direction. It's only when you've cultivated enough capacity and enough resource and enough self trust that you start to make real desire led moves of just like, I'm good, but I want that. Because you've cultivated enough trust to be like, okay, I can have that. But then when you start to have that and you go, I want that and I want that and I want that, and oh my God, I'm fried and I can't relax and I'm da da da, then you start to go, okay, what am I avoiding here? Because there are a lot of people that have beautiful lives.
Mm,
And I have had spots like this, especially moving to this property. You have a beautiful life. You're looking around, you're like, I've got everything that a former version of me wanted. Why am I struggling to enjoy this? Or why am I struggling to just let myself be in this? What's going on here? And that's where doing the deeper somatic work is really, really powerful. Or just being in a space where you're going on a journey where that's possible for you to explore. It's not like you have to do everything like this, because that's just, I think a lot of people are in that information overwhelm. They're in that like pressure state, and their horses are like, you need to feel. So either I'm going to go through something challenging to make you feel. So you have to figure this out. And a lot of people, I think their horses guide them to me because they think they're coming in for the horsemanship stuff. But their
mm.
horses are like, yeah, but she needs something else. Like when you joined in the intuitive equestrian, you signed up for both parts and you didn't even know about the healing stuff. You were just like, yeah, that sounds good. And then you're in it, you're like, oh my goodness.
I know, I know. And that was perfect because I did need that. I needed that. But
Yeah,
and then interesting how things do um evolve the way they're supposed to evolve. It was so interesting because
absolutely.
I still would struggle with the whole like just being, the whole
Yeah.
like quieting my mind and just being. I mean, it's still something that I'm still struggling, but I did end up doing the mentorship with Mariana, which was so
Oh,
fun
yeah.
because
Great.
she was in frequency with me, right? And it's so
Yes.
funny. So we were in frequency together, and then I decided, like, I felt called to do that, and it was beautiful. But the thing that I really gained from that with her, and it was 9 months. I did 9 months with her.
That's
And
massive.
is that I can actually I can actually be now. And in the beginning, I couldn't do it. Like I really struggled to do it. And I'm not going to say it's still easy. Sometimes it's still struggle to do it, but
For
at least
sure.
I almost have like those neural pathways or whatever that I can find my way to the allowing myself to just be. And the beautiful thing about that
Mm.
is what I realized is how much of my life that I've spent not being in my body at all.
Of
So
course.
it's
And it
like,
makes sense.
so then you're almost like your memories and stuff aren't even as real because you weren't really even in your body. Like
Yeah.
you could have memories, but maybe they're just not as powerful as they could be because you weren't in your body
Yeah.
when you were doing all these things. Like sometimes I'll look at a photo even of me with
Yeah.
my horses and I think like at a competition, let's say, and I just think, wow, was that me? Like it's weird. It's weird. I can look at it and
Totally.
not almost not even feel like I am that person. But what I learned over this last 9 months or whatever is how when I'm actually in my body,
Mm.
everything looks different. Everything looks more crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
The sounds and the
The
whatever.
beauty.
It's so interesting. Anyway, what's cool is just being able to recognize, oh, I'm actually being right now versus
Totally. And
doing
this
or
is just a
just
part of like so many of our human experience. Like we're meant to go on these journeys to not feel like so good and then have the contrast because the contrast is what makes it extra beautiful. And one thing I do want to mention because I suspect a lot of people listening to this are familiar with Celeste Lazarus's work and this kind of pillar one. With the pillar one, you're helping the horses find this nervous system regulation, and it's through the co regulation that they can connect with you with, right? So if you're working with a horse that's in a heightened state and you have the capacity to be a bit more, you can help them find that spot. Now, I think often people don't tend to give themselves that same grace. They think, oh, I could do this on my own, and you perhaps could, but it is a lot easier to find a state of beingness when you have somebody else to co-regulate with, which is where these group spaces that allow for that, or you working with Mariana in that one-to-one setting, you've cultivated enough safety there so you've got support if you need it. You've got someone you can co-regulate with if you need it, so that then you can cultivate that safety in your system so that then you can self-regulate, because most of us have, as kids didn't have healthy co-regulation because we had emotionally unavailable parents, and that's not wrong, it's just what is. And we didn't learn to self-regulate because in order to self-regulate you have to co-regulate first. So you have to be able to co-regulate with another so that then you can feel safe self-regulating on your own. So I think that's a really important step to bring forward, because a lot of people are like, yeah, I can do it on my own, or yeah, I can do the meditation on my own, or yeah, you can, why aren't you?
right.
Okay, well, it's the same reason why your horse that's stressed in the paddock isn't just going to all of a sudden decide to feel relaxed often, because they need help. They're being invited to kind of attune to another, which is where you put them in a paddock with another horse that is grounded. Oh, I can relax. So, you finding someone that allows your body to feel more grounded is going to help you find that state of beingness that you can attune to, so that then you can carry that into the rest of your life, find that self regulation, and then carry that forward. So, I'm just bringing that forward from the state of like often it's something we don't want to explore. We don't want to be like, shit, well, I have to. I'm really being invited to lean into this because it can feel really uncomfortable, but there's so much beauty on the other side of that. And it's so much easier than just bashing yourself over the head and blaming yourself because you struggle to do the things that you thought you could do on your own and you're not.
Yeah, and then just to even tie into what you a little bit you touched on that once the horses, so they co-regulate. Now I'm putting it back on the horses. They learn to
Yeah.
co-regulate, but then they learn to find that space themselves
Yes.
too. And
Yes.
when you see them able to find it on their own, it is
Yes.
really cool. It is like, whoa, like you were able to
Yes.
help guide them to a space where now they can help themselves.
Which is what I love doing with my people. Like I like getting people to a point where you don't need me. Not that you ever needed me, you wanted to work with me. You don't need me. And if you decide that you want to continue hanging out and doing cool stuff together, cool. You can do that from a place of want, not need. But I want you to be able to kind of implement these things and then carry them into your life. If you're working with someone and you feel like you, yeah, there's a lot of unhealthy energy in certain spaces based on the dynamics, and I think a lot of us, and I've done this in the past, can find ourselves working with mentors that are perhaps not the healthiest dynamic because we're being invited to address something deeper that is a little bit more uncomfortable, where perhaps there is a little bit more of that codependency formed. But I really love cultivating that space to be like, okay, here's a tool that you can use, play with it. And if that doesn't work for you, let's find another tool. And I've been going on a bigger deep dive in human design, and it's been really cool learning about the different centers. And for example, with the defined crown, so that's the top center in the chart. I was learning recently, listening to people having a conversation about those that have a defined crown and those that have an undefined crown. So if it's defined, it's colored in. If it's not undefined, it's white, or not colored in. And those with a defined crown were talking about how they love to always have something to focus on. So that could be music, that could be sound, that could be watching something on TV, that could be being on their phone, that could be doing something. Whereas those with an undefined crown much prefer empty space in certain times. They
Mm.
like it to be quiet, whereas the defined crown finds it easier to connect. So I was thinking about this from a beingness standpoint. There are going to be some people that find it way easier to be going for a walk with headphones in, listening to frequency music. There's going to be some people that find it easier to be just sitting and being still. They all are options, but often we can just box ourselves into like, no, it has to be this way. It's like, who said?
Right. And we're all different.
We're all different.
Beautifully so, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we continue to have those realizations of like, that didn't work for me and this does work for me. And I knew that that would work for me deep down. I just had to give myself permission to do that. It's just
Hmm.
cultivating those permission slips to do what we already know deep down.
Hmm. And really, yeah, just I think the investigating or learning is exactly that, so that you can find the things that work for you and then
Yeah.
let go
And
of
when
the
you're with
things that
someone
don't.
that has gone on a journey to like explore a lot of different things and work with a lot of different people, they can likely help you fast track that if it's the right person.
Right,
Because then
right.
they can
Fast
give
track,
you other
yeah.
options that perhaps you wouldn't have found in that shorter time frame on your own.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
For that, when you said you were talking about the client and the tapping, because yeah, I'm not too into the tapping either,
Yeah.
but I do love the somatic journeys. So,
Yes.
so interesting. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, very cool. Well, wow. I don't even know. We've been talking for an hour and a half.
Yeah, we
Do
went on a
you,
journey.
do you, do you have anything else you want to add to this fascinating conversation that we've kind of covered a lot of topics, actually?
Should I pull a card quick?
Yeah, let's do that. I love
All
it.
right, we'll do Equestrian Oracle card. These are decks that I made in 2021 before I even went on my animal communication journey and didn't even know that I could do that. Ha
That's
ha.
amazing. I
My
know.
future self was like, let's just get her to do this now. And even in the deck, I'm like, I'm channeling horse spirits. Like, you didn't even know.
That's so funny.
Anyway, so the card is, and this is a prominent one that is coming up lately, it's let go. So I
Okay.
think it's just in that, like, I a friend of mine described this really beautifully the other day of like whatever you're carrying, like from that let go perspective, it's like give it up to God, give it up to the universe, give it up to spirit, give it up to a higher power, whatever you believe in and whatever feels resonant for you, like let it go. Like when you are inviting your horse to find that self carriage, like you soften the reins and there's an element of wobble and you have to find that trust of like, hey, we can figure this out together. So whatever you're gripping onto, just allow yourself to let that go a little bit. And it's not right, it's not wrong, it just is. And you'll know what it is. And then I'm going to pull a equestrian reflection journal prompt card to
Okay.
see if this aligns with that to give us a next step for you guys to contemplate before we wrap up. Okay. The card is my why behind having horses in my life is.
Mm.
And then on the back, it says, my why is the greatest motivator of all. So I think this is a beautiful contemplation prompt to tie into this journey that we've been talking about in terms of my journey, connecting with like what's really important to me with my horses. And also this conversation about like finding what's important to you. What's your why behind having horses? Like, why do you have them in your life? What do you enjoy doing together? How do you want to feel together? What's important in your life? When you can distinguish that, then you're not trying to like live somebody else's life that was never meant for you. So I think that's a beautiful card to kind of tie us off.
That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, not living someone else's life, but finding the life that's really meant for you.
Yeah,
So important. So beautiful. Do you
amazing.
okay, I have to ask you just one. I know we did this. So Felicity was
Yeah.
episode 1, season 1. Now
Yes.
this is going to be episode 3 of season 2 and
Mm-hmm.
12 episodes per season. But I'm going to ask you again, and I don't remember what you said necessarily over a
I
year
don't
ago,
either.
but if you were going to just give someone some advice for creating a more magical connection with their horse, what would it be?
It would be, let me just feel into it. I just keep getting like to believe that the magic's already present.
Mm. That just gave me chills, actually. It
Yeah.
is. It's there.
It's already there. I think so often we can be in a spot where we're looking like to create more connection or more magic or whatever, and we're looking at it from that the perspective of it's already absent. Look for the magic that's already there. You've already experienced.
So beautiful. It's there, and you just need to be with it, to be with
To
it.
be with it, and then it
Yeah.
will expand.
Yeah. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, so how do people find you?
So you can find me on my website, felicitydavies.com.au. I've got my own podcast, Equestrian Perspective, and I'm on Instagram at Felicity Davies with an underscore at the end. I'm on Facebook. Just search my name, you'll find me, Felicity Davies.
And I'll link it in the show notes too.
Yeah,
So thank you. I really appreciate you coming back. And
thanks for
wow,
having me.
this was a great conversation.
We had a great conversation. Love it.
Thanks, Felicity. Always such an empowering conversation every time you and I chat. I loved it so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you for always being such a grounding presence. You're really a magical person. And thanks everybody for listening to My Magical Horse, the podcast. Be sure to check out Felicity's website and her Instagram and Facebook pages. And if you would like to dive deeper with My Magical Horse, we would love to have you. Head on over to the Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/mymagicalhorse, and you can join us as a free member. Until next time, namaste, friends.